What you're about to witness is, if I may say so myself, quite disturbing. I have just finished a debate with the quote unquote creator or the discoverer or the however you want to call it, however you want to frame it. The discoverer of this power law price model that people have been talking about and saying that this is the law of nature and that this is going to predict price throughout the life cycle of Bitcoin. And I've had a contention with this because what I realized was that nobody that's been around for more than one cycle is talking about this. This individual, his name is Giovanni, who has been getting fame, has been talking about this price model. And I'm not saying any of it is complete trash. I just think it's dangerous for anybody to think that they can control the price or influence the price of Bitcoin. And in this debate, what you're going to see here is how this whole argument falls apart very quickly. Now, this is the first time I'm aware that Giovanni, who is the creator of this, has tried talking to someone who is a pure skeptic. Every single time he's spoken to someone, done an interview with someone, it's been someone who is either in their 20s and first time in Bitcoin and naive about, price prediction models and things like that, or someone who's trying to use his work to gain more fame than Gio. Gio has, unfortunately, by his own words, been overlooked over Plan B and stock to flow and everything else, and he thinks that this is the most beautiful thing on earth. And I've always disagreed with this because I do not think that you can price model Bitcoin. And finally, after a podcast I did with Sean Clark, great podcast, great Aussie podcaster on Bitcoin, and he asked me about power law, and I got a little bit passionate about it, and I said, look, I think this is going to be dangerous for people because what they're advocating is if it goes above the power law line a little bit too much, then you can sell off some of your Bitcoin and then buy some back when it comes back down and touches the power law line. It sounds like a great theory, but how do you measure that in an environment where the United States of America is about to create a million Bitcoin reserve? How do you model something when the president of the United States is so pro-Bitcoin, the House is potentially pro-Bitcoin, the Senate is potentially pro-Bitcoin? How do you do that? It's not relevant to me. And I want you to watch this debate. It's going to unravel really quickly what happens here. Gio's going to reveal himself for, what he is. He's been attacking me on Twitter and everything else. And I finally decided to take the debate. He's been asking for this debate. And I warned him. I said, you're now entering my world. And so we're going to undo the raveling of whatever you think this is. And so this is what happens in this debate. And then what I'm going to do, I didn't even get to this point in the debate because I think, again, as I put out before the debate, I thought it was going to be an unfair debate. The debate was hosted by my friend Fred, who was around in Clubhouse and listening to us talk about Bitcoin in 2021, and now Fred has become what I believe is a valuable and interesting voice in the Bitcoin space. However, Fred, in my opinion, has been deluded by Gio into thinking that this is a price model, and it can be looked at as gospel, right? So, and again, every one of Gio's disciples, my bet is sell 50% of your Bitcoin stack according to this model, and then we can talk about it. If you're not going to do that, you're not going to trade it, it's irrelevant talking about price models. So anyway, Fred hosts this debate. I knew it was going to be an ambush. I knew it was going to be a 2-on-1 debate. I knew that this was going to happen, but I just felt that this was getting to the point where people are now starting to think that power law is gospel, and it's absolutely not. First thing, it's not even a law, and you'll hear me get Gio to admit that in this interview. So watch this debate, and then on the end of the debate, what's going to happen is I'm going to come back, and I couldn't even get to this in the debate with how ridiculous this was. Obviously, after Fred put out a poll that you'll hear him in the video is completely unedited. Fred put out a poll, and I won the debate 70% to 30%. And it is what it is. People finally saw the truth of what this power law model is. I'm not saying it's not interesting. I went into the debate looking at it going, okay, Gio is a math PhD, physicist, whatever the hell else everyone says he is, so his maths must be correct. my perspective is, I think the best thing that people can do in an environment like this is hodl their Bitcoin, not think about trading their Bitcoin. And I don't see anything wrong with that, right? I don't think anyone should be sitting there going, I'm going to sell my Bitcoin, and then you see the US announce 1 million Bitcoin strategic reserve inside of 2 years, and you see that hockey stick moment, and your children are left without the hardest asset humanity has ever created because you decided to listen to someone on the internet talk about a line that they want you to worship. I don't think that's cool. So let's get to the interview. At the end of the interview, I'm going to come through and finally be able to go through my notes on why I, as a non-maths PhD physicist, astrophysicist, whatever the hell else, can very easily look at what the very core components of a power law are and tell you that this might be interesting, but it's not relevant. So let's get to the debate, and then we'll come back and I'll walk you through the 3 points that made power law irrelevant for me. Let's enjoy the debate.
I'm gonna click join. Okay, here we go. Okay. We now have British as well. And I need a coin. I need a coin. Of course, when I need a coin, I don't have a coin. I'm gonna get a coin for the coin toss. I'm going to give, since Giovanni showed up first, I'm going to give Giovanni, you can pick heads or tails. What would you prefer, heads or tails? And then you get to call whether you want to go first or do you want to have the last argument, Giovanni?
Fred, can you hear me? Can you guys hear me? I'm not sure.
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you
okay.
Fine.
Conveniently, the one time that I'm doing a debate, 2 against 1 debate, I'm locked out of the stream. So I don't know how that works, but there we go. I'm here now.
You're here. You're here. You're
actually,
you're all good.
Given, it will be mostly a response to the things that he's saying. Let him choose whatever he likes.
Okay. Would you like to go first and then have Giovanni end the debate, or do you want to go second and have you end the debate, British? What would you prefer? We can't hear you at all, British.
I'll end the debate. We can end it in 5 minutes if you want. We don't have to.
Okay, you're going to end the debate. Okay, so Giovanni, you're going to go first. I'm going to let you play your video at any time, but I have an actual format for the questions here. 1 second. So I picked these questions with a few audience participation, and I think these 3 questions will pretty much they really kind of come to grips with most of the questions people have or the power law. Okay, so the first question, and I guess this question will be for Giovanni, and let me put also, I'm going to put also a timer up on the screen. Timer countdown. And we're going to go with 2 minutes per person. And we're going to say 2 minutes per person. Let me just put this thing out.
Fred, I just want to say I really like the fact that you dressed up for this. I really respect that.
Well, I'm trying to be professional, unlike you, both of you gentlemen. But okay, I want to get my timer up here. 1 second. Okay. Let me get my timer.
And I want to say, Gio, despite all of your threats and insults and everything, I want to say it's a pleasure to meet you too.
Sure. Yes. At the same time, I will not say that I made any threat.
Okay. So I'm going to put British on the main stage. No, I'm putting Gio on the main stage. Excuse me. I'm going to put Gio on the main stage. Hold on 1 second. There we go. And the question will be,
do we not get any opening remarks or anything like that? I mean,
yeah, there will be. Okay, so the opening remarks is I think both of you guys have had a very noticeable impact on Bitcoin Twitter. And I was aware of British HODL first because of his insistence of everybody to get to one Bitcoin. I thought is a very heartfelt message, and he's been pushing that message, I think, for 3 years, as far as I can remember. So it's about 3 years he's been doing this. And, Giovanni recently has emerged, and I think I've a little bit to do with this, but I think he also, on his own merits, he has emerged as really the first person to ever discover the power law, but also, he's subsequently done, I would consider it to be very significant work on the power law. And I think there's now a number of people who have followed what Giovanni has done, who have checked the numbers, and who I would say are power law aficionados, let's just say. So a lot of people have asked me, well, Fred, we need to settle this because both of these approaches, there's still quite a few people who do not believe the power law is a thing. They think it really should. It's not a law. You can't tell the future, et cetera, et cetera. And so I've been asked to referee a debate between Giovanni as the representative of the power law crew and the oldest member of the power law school, and British, who's going to represent the skeptics of the power law and the people who say that the power law is useless. It's you shouldn't be paying any attention to it, and worse, right?
Fred, I think that's terrible framing, but we can run with that. I think
we're going to run with that.
That's conversation going here.
So let's. I know everybody's going to have their own opinion of this, but my first question is for Giovanni, which is, Giovanni, you have developed an elaborate theory of the power law. British HODL has a much more simple theory of 3 rules. You buy Bitcoin, you shut the fuck up, and you get insanely rich. For non-mathematicians, why is your power law in any way superior to British HODL's 3 rules? And you have 2 minutes to respond to that.
Okay. So first of all, if you want to show my slides, please. So I
you
want
can
to start
share whatever you want.
Yeah. Can you highlight it or show it to the public, please? I already shared it.
So, as you can see here on the chart, for like 4 years, Bitcoin was in.
So it's actually a quote from one of my heroes, that is Enrico Fermi, and he claims ignorance is never better than knowledge. And no matter what you can think, like some people say, ignorance is bliss. Maybe if you have a illness that will kill you anyway or whatever. But I cannot imagine anything like that, because even in a difficult situation like that, then you can take choices. You can make choices that are well informed based on reality. So I am a reality worshipper. If there is anything that I worship in my life, it's reality. Why? Because reality is the ultimate point of reference for us. In fact, if you're a Bitcoiner, even more so. So why is superior? Okay, actually, pretty good question. It's a very good question. It's superior because, first of all, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful insight about Bitcoin. You want to understand Bitcoin as a Bitcoiner? Yes, I do. I want to understand anything that makes me appreciate what Bitcoin is. It makes me understand how Bitcoin works. And if there is some beautiful mathematical approach that let us understand what Bitcoin is and tell us also what Bitcoin will do in the future, because I want to address that now or at a certain point, why the power law is so special that actually is the best scientific understanding of what will happen in the future of Bitcoin. Many people misunderstand this concept because it's at the core of what the power law is. So,
okay. Well,
just a second. I need to. I still have a few seconds, right? In my answer. Okay.
There's your seconds.
Okay. All right. We're going to get back to the subject, but we're now going to let British respond to why are your three rules actually better than the complex mathematical scheme of Giovanni. You have 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Well, do you want to take his slides off the screen first? That would be great. Right.
There you go.
I prefer your face than mine. Even better. Right. So, look. Firstly, power law is not even a law. We're going to get to that in a second. Secondly, Giovanni spends his entire day insulting people on Twitter when they don't agree with what he says. The three rules of Bitcoin are very, very simple. It's not a model. It's not anything scientific, but it works. Why? Because you've finally got the scarcest, hardest asset humanity has ever created. And you've got someone here that's trying to tell you that they can map this out with a line. And he's got all of his disciples telling everyone that they need to every 4 years or whatever it is, bend over for the line and sell their Bitcoin. And they're going to miss out the opportunity in a time where you've got the United States of America, the president, Larry Fink, BlackRock, the entire wealth management space coming in and trying to buy Bitcoin here. The reason why the three rules are efficient is because it gets to the root of what you're supposed to be doing when you have the hardest, scarcest asset humanity has ever created. And that is buying it and hugging it like it's your children, not trying to trade it, not trying to imagine that you can use not even a law, right? And trying to confuse people. Look how many innocent people there are out here looking at it. And by the way, no one that has been around for more than one cycle is promoting this. Why? Because I went through it with stock to flow. Right? And now people are going to have to learn the same lesson again. There's going to be people here that are going to listen to this garbage and they're going to sell their Bitcoin, and then Bitcoin's going to hit an S curve, and you're going to see the United States try and build a 1 million Bitcoin strategic reserve, and that's the end of your power law. It's only been around for it's based on 10 years of data. It needs constant updating on the data to make sure it stays relevant. None of it makes any sense. The most important thing with Bitcoin is how much you own. It is a monetary network. It is not a fiat network. It is not a trading network. There is an absolute limit to the amount of Bitcoin. And in that environment, you should be working on owning more, not trying to game the system.
Okay. Giovanni?
How many more seconds?
So let me, because of the format, I'm going to be very, very focused,
we're going to ask you about
everything he says is BS. Why? He doesn't know. He has no clue how he's modeling. He's do modeling by saying Bitcoin is going up. Based on what? What is your probability? Tell me. Calculate the math of what you're saying. You have exactly the same probability of going up or down. Exactly like Buffett says.
This is the issue, sir.
This is the issue, my friend. Don't interrupt me. Don't interrupt me. You have exactly the same probability. I hate the power law simply because it shows exactly this, because you are simply hand waving. I tell you, it's no complex mathematics. It's a log. It's a simple graph. You can look it with your eyes. There is no complex mathematics there. It's elementary mathematics. It's middle school mathematics. It's a line, first of all, in a log graph. It's a J-stick. The J-stick that you invoke all the time is the power law. It's the only J-stick that exists that matches almost perfectly the data. And
so far,
to go like that. Not so far, because when you have a system like this,
so this is going to match. This is going to perfectly line up with the future of Bitcoin for 20 years into the future.
Do not interrupt me. It's my time.
This is not your time. This is the debate time. You don't even know how to debate works.
You will have 2 minutes.
Look, Fred, I've got some props, right? Every time he says something wrong, the spaghetti gets it.
Interrupted. So why power laws continue to exist in the future? Because it's all about scaling variance. What does it mean, scaling variance? It means that the system grows in a proportional fashion. These systems are exactly what Bitcoin is. And it's a good thing, because that means it's not going to zero. These systems are reliable, are predictable, are resistant. When we had COVID, for example, you can see it's almost like a stress test. Bitcoin went to a support line. during COVID. It was an incredible stress test for the theory. That says the power law protect us. The
For
power
now.
law allow us not to go to zero. That
For
is
now.
the beauty. There is a reference point where we know no matter what, we go there and we never go below. That
For
is
now.
the beauty of a power law. And ignorance is never better than knowledge. And this is the knowledge. Okay? So, yeah, you can break. I have still 1 minute, right? So that is the entire idea. It's not difficult. It's not complicated. Thousands of people have reproduced the results. All what it takes is Excel. We actually tell all the time, including Fred, we push people to reproduce the graph. There is no complication. It's just a new way of seeing things. It's like you're taking a drone, you're looking at the forest instead of looking at the trees. And when you look at the forest, you see this beautiful pattern. It is Bitcoin. Bitcoin is beautiful.
I knew it was going to be unfair, Fred.
And it's not. I want to say one more thing. In my last 30 seconds, it's not about selling Bitcoin. It's about understanding it. Then what you do with that knowledge is up to you. And knowledge is better than ignorance.
So
British,
listen, first question I have for the professor here is, number one, is power law, it is a power law. I'm uneducated, right? I don't even have elementary level math. So explain it to me like I'm 5. Does power law, is it predictive? Is it a predictive model?
Absolutely.
Or how does that work?
Absolutely.
Or so is it a law, or is it based on empirical observation? How does a power law work?
What do you mean for law? You know what is the scientific definition of a law?
Well, does it work?
By the way, what is your level of education? Have you ever gone to school? Have you ever gone to school? Which level of school?
The only thing I know is the 3
Did you go to university? Did you take any class in advanced math?
I want you to assume that the only thing I know is the 3 laws of Bitcoin. 3 rules of Bitcoin. That's the only thing I want you to assume.
So the power law is not a law, but your 3
so the power law is,
hold
on. Power law is not a law. So you've been lying this
power
entire
law is
time.
called the power law. It's a power law.
So you've been lying this entire time, calling it a law, when innocent people are.
You don't know what a law is. You know what I'm asking you a very precise thing. You know what in science a law is. So because let me do this. Because
I can't even get
know
my
what a
message
law
out.
is, I will explain it. I am the scientist. You don't know, right? So if you don't know, then shut up. I will tell you what a law is.
We've exhausted. Guys, we've exhausted the first question. We've agreed.
Well, I haven't even got a chance to rebut what he said. He's been interrupting me the whole time.
I will give British 30 seconds. Please, British, just go for 30 seconds. Go.
Okay, no problem. Firstly, it's not a law, right? He knows this. Everyone knows this. All of the power law proponents are lying to people. It's not a law because it's based on empirical observation. And that empirical observation can change as and when new events appear in the future. Therefore, it is not a law. The professor himself just said the power law is not a law, it's just called a law. The problem is with that is that innocent people that are looking at this going, this is a power law and this is a model, understand it as it's a law. You and 3% of the population might understand that this is not even a model, right? It's a curve shift. You're fitting the data into a curve in your specific way. But this is not a law. It is not a model.
Time out.
Okay.
No, not on that one. We have to keep on our thing. 1 second. We'll have plenty of time to discuss this. I want to talk about Ryan McGinnis and D++, 2 people who are very active in our spaces, have come up with this question. I think it really summarizes kind of the anti-power law thing. So I'm going to ask this question first to British, okay? And the question is, this is the question. The question is, the future, according to D++, and she said it earlier today on the space, the future is inherently unknowable. And so the question to Giovanni is, how can something that is inherently unknowable be predicted with the power law? That's the question. How can you predict the future?
Do you want me to answer that question, or do you want?
Oh, sorry, to you, British. Can you predict the future? Or is it completely unknowable?
Absolutely not. Did you know, Fred, that 1 year ago, the president of the United States of America, and hopefully the next president of the United States, was going to be talking about Bitcoin, that we would have a Bitcoin House, a Bitcoin Senate, a Bitcoin president, a Bitcoin VP? Nobody knew that. It was not predictable. Events change. Power law, there's law that's not even a law. If you want to keep calling, if you want to keep calling it power something to make it sound good, call it something else. Call it a power opinion. Call it whatever you want to call it. But it is not a law, and everyone needs to be aware of that. That's why I'm here, because he keeps bullying people when they disagree with him that it's a law. The real fact is this: you cannot predict the future. The power law doesn't predict the future. It is a curve fit model, and what that means is every time new data shows up, you need to fit the curve again. And guess what he's going to do? He's going to use his biases to fit that model, and that's all that's going to happen. While normal people are going to get wrecked because they're going to sell their Bitcoin at the wrong time, and then Bitcoin's going to go through the roof because of an event that shows up. And Giovanni's not going to take any responsibility for that. He's going to sit there and go, I'm the genius, and he's not the genius. And this is the first time he's had enough time talking to people who are 20 years old, don't know what they're talking about, or older people who want to use his life's work to try and become more famous than he is. And that's it. That's what this drama has been in terms of the power law. There is nothing else to see here. The 3 rules of Bitcoin reign supreme no matter what. Ultimately, if he thinks that this thing is actually important, let's ask him, does he want people to trade this? Does he want people to trade the hardest asset humanity has ever seen when the United States of America is about to launch a 1 million Bitcoin strategic reserve? Is that the smart thing to do? I'm sure the professor has a perspective.
But first, let Giovanni answer the question, which is this: is the future knowable, and can these mathematical techniques that you have applied or that have been applied to, say, animals and the weight and the movement of planets, can they be applied to understanding the future of a financial instrument like Bitcoin? Can we predict the future?
Okay,
with
so
power
first of
law?
all, I'm going to quickly address the power law, the law BS. It's so stupid. It's based on ignorance. Law in physics means a pattern. Now, if people need to learn terminology, like I say, imagine you go to a surgeon or a lawyer that says, I just did a motion. Oh, I don't see any motion. This is not a motion. There is nothing moving. It's stupid. Learn the terminology. Bitcoiners are intelligent. I have a completely different approach with you. I consider every Bitcoiner a very clever person. They can learn some terminology. Power law means a power pattern. It means a pattern based on empirical data, like you say, that is established over time. Anything, even the law of gravity, right, is such a thing. Just ignorant people that didn't take even one single class in the university, like you, and they don't want to learn because today there is not excuse. So it's not a law means right? Something from God. It doesn't mean that. So shut up. You're always invoking ignorance. That is your only virtue. Second, yes, it's predictable. Just want to confirm it's not without prediction, we could not do anything. Right now, for example, I'm predicting what I want to say. I'm trying to think what British Old or Minesh, what Minesh is trying to reply. I'm trying to see how much time there is. All these are prediction. We predict all the time. That is what being human means. We make models. We are trying to understand the future. We cannot cross a street unless we understand what the future is going on. Do you know what? I have a joke. I thought I think a joke. Do you know what is the difference between me and him? Me, I cross the street. I look right. I look left. No cars. Okay, that means I can cross. Do you know what is his understanding of life? It's Looney Tunes. Left, right. Oh, a train comes in. That is his understanding. That is bullshit because, again, Bitcoin could go up or down according to you. There is no base on your understanding of a word. It's Looney Tune understanding.
Let me ask you something. Do you need to refit the model every time there's new data? Or do you just leave it? Do you just leave it?
I can show you a graph. Let me show a graph.
No, let's not see it. I just want a yes or no answer. I just want a yes or no answer.
I want to show a graph.
Do you have to refit this quote-unquote
model? I already answered.
Every time.
Let me
show
this graph. Shut up. You ask a question.
No, you're not going to tell me to shut up. I've come on this debate because you were begging me to debate me. You're going to show some respect. Otherwise, I can just leave. This is better for you than it is for me. Fred, you got to control your mentor here, Fred.
So you asked a question. Let Giovanni quickly show
But
his graph.
he's not answering it. He's just going on.
I'm answering it. How do you know that I'm answering if you don't allow me to answer it?
Answer,
So shut
because he's
when
trying to tell
somebody asks a
people,
question
he's trying
and
to
he
tell
wants an
people that this
answer,
is a
then
predictive
he
model.
waits for
And
the
it's not a
answer.
predictive model. Power laws are not used to be predictive models. And he is trying to demonstrate that this is a predictive model.
Okay,
It does
so
not work like
let
that.
me
And
answer
people are going to
this
get
question.
wrecked listening
Fred,
to
can
this.
I answer the question?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
So
Go
this
ahead.
graph illustrates exactly what he's talking about. So if the power law, by the way, has only one parameter, that is the slope. The slope is close to 6. Now you can do, this graph illustrates this. It's not even my graph. It's one of the many people, very clever people that have other PhDs. Right now we have 6, 7, and there will be more and more and more because people don't know. More and more people are studying this seriously. Okay, people with the right professional tools. And what is going on? People have shown this graph over and over again. What this graph illustrates is basically, you see how in the beginning, so this is how it works. You add more and more data, right? You start from the beginning, you add more and more data. And because of the big bubbles in the beginning, the data is unstable initially. But then you can see both of these lines that are the parameters involved in the power law, they stabilized, they became stable over and over and over again, became more and more perfect. In fact, all the statistical calculation like R squared, they tell us how close, how much of the Bitcoin behavior is explained by the power law. It is something close to 95%, something ridiculous that is becoming better and better and better. So that is the answer. No, it became actually the power law is becoming better and better.
My friend Gio, do you know what happened? My friend Gio, do you know what happened last time in the last cycle when you weren't around? What happened was people started.
I was around. That is the other lie that you say. I am in Bitcoin before you.
Relax.
2012.
Don't get emotional.
When did you stop
selling
silver?
Guys,
we're just having a conversation. I don't want you to shout at me. I'm not shouting at you. I do not want you to shout at me.
Don't say lies. Don't say lies.
Okay, guys. Okay.
And I have just one point. I have just one point to make, Fred. And that is that the last time when Gio wasn't around, what happened was people started believing this.
You cannot say that when I was not around. I was around before you. I interrupt you to say lies. This is a crazy,
Gio,
stupid
my
lie.
friend. I'm not shouting at you.
I'm a Bitcoiner.
Gio, relax. You're a math professor. Relax.
I'm not relaxing.
We're not in the room.
Guys.
Fred, we have one. I want to get this out of my mouth, Fred. It's a very important point. Right? It's very simple. When he wasn't around in the last cycle, what happened was people started believing things like this, and then what they did was they sold their Bitcoin, right, at the wrong time. Sometimes people did it at the right time and they got lucky, and that's absolutely fine. People can try and time the market. I have no problem. By the way, I came into this conversation assuming that Professor's math is completely correct. I'm not arguing that. What we're arguing here is the usefulness of this. And for that, it's completely useless. It is absolutely and utterly completely useless.
We're gonna have time. You guys are gonna have time. You guys
sell $20 subscriptions.
You guys are gonna have time to make your final arguments. But we have a final question, okay? And this question, it really boils down to a lot of people, including David Bailey from Bitcoin Magazine. And British HODL, right, has said that this is everything, right? And so if the ETF changes everything, and could it not produce a hockey stick that invalidates the power law on the upside? And what about sovereign nation state adoption? Could that not, in fact, invalidate power law on the upside? So
power laws
I'm gonna first let me first ask. I think I'm going to ask Giovanni this time. Is the power law? Are we likely to have an invalidation to the upside because of ETF?
Absolutely not. So let me explain what the power law is. The power law is exactly everything that ever happened to Bitcoin. Every single thing, every event, starting from Satoshi. That attract
so far the ETF is new,
and all the different things, right? So Satoshi brought in people. These people brought knowledge. They brought reviewing the code, where we're running the code on their machines, that attracting more people. All these things are happening to Bitcoin. All these events, one after the other, is the power law. So the ETF, why do you think Saylor 4 years ago was shitting on Bitcoin? Exactly because of the power law. Why do you think ETF happened now? Exactly because of the power law. I calculated because I knew it by instinct.
So hold on, the power law now predicted the ETF? I didn't see you saying that last
I
year.
calculated the inflow that is needed.
I didn't see Giovanni saying that the power law is going to predict the ETF.
$850 million per day. So compare that with the ETF, and you realize that ETF is nothing disruptive. It's exactly what we need to continue on the power law.
Giovanni is like the Nostradamus of Bitcoin.
Two presidential candidates to the conference. Power
Giovanni,
law.
let British now have 2 minutes to
the line. Hey, Fred, the line apparently now predicted ETF. Why didn't Giovanni put out a message saying, in this year I foresee the ETF coming out if the line is so predictive? Firstly, the basic math of what he's trying to say is not meant to be predictive. It's meant to be analysis of what's happened in the past and a guide for maybe the future, which has to be adjusted every time a new event happens. None of this is useful for the future. There will be a moment in time where the power law is completely and utterly invalidated because of the supply dynamics of the asset. It is the first time we've ever had an asset ever that has finality of supply. So there is no way you can model this. Power laws can be found in all of these different things, and all Gio wants to do is insult people on Twitter that disagree with him and spend time with people that just want to feed into this delusion so he can try and get people to try and trade this thing. Well, that's not the goal here. The goal here is for people to acquire as much Bitcoin as possible for themselves, their family, their progeny. And Gio is going to harm that. He's harming this spaghetti over here, and he's going to harm that in people in this cycle.
Okay, guys, we're actually on schedule. We're at 50 minutes, and now I'm going to have Giovanni. He can give a 5-minute summary of his position, but British HODL is not allowed to interrupt during his summary, and then British HODL can have the last 5 minutes uninterrupted on his side. And we have almost 10,000 people, so it's pretty good. We got a pretty good audience.
In science, there are 2 times when scientists feel confident about making predictions. And scientists make predictions all the time, all the time. We cannot send a probe on Mars unless we make a prediction of where it's going to land, and we can do it with extreme, incredible precision. These 2 times are when you have a scale invariant system, and power law and scale invariant is 1 to 1. They're exactly the same thing. And the other time is when you have periodicities. Bitcoin is both. So we should celebrate that we have such a beautiful system, because it's also a way to differentiate it from anything else. And why it's useful? It's not useful because you can use it to sell at the top, or at least not to buy. So British, buy at the top. I want you to buy at the top. I'll tell you, in fact, I will tell you when we are at the top. So you still silence. Don't
talk to me.
It's
like
my
that.
time.
If
Silence.
If you want to talk like an Italian granddad, you're not going to talk to me.
You are the referee. You say that he cannot talk what I'm talking. He's interrupting.
You're not going to silence me like that.
He's interrupting me.
British, please allow him to speak.
He invoked my name. What do you want me to do? And then
of course, I'm talking to you.
Like he's in a school.
You're in the debate.
No, don't let him talk, because he's interrupting me.
Okay, just continue, Giovanni, of another 3 minutes or so.
Okay, so the idea is that it's allow us to understand both the past but also the future. Why do you think it behaves in this way? Because power laws are all about things happening in a proportional fashion. Everything that happens in Bitcoin happens in a very determined, precise pattern. It's a feedback loop. It's the idea of a feedback loop. Power laws equal feedback loop. Basically what it means, every time that something happens to Bitcoin, happens because of the current state of the situation. How many Bitcoiners are we going to orange pill today? It's proportional to the number of Bitcoiners that we have right now. It's an obvious thing. So this process will continue. And we always happen proportionally to where we are. That is what the power law is all about. It's a beautiful thing. Bitcoin is the only system different from Nasdaq, gold, silver, all the things that you were peddling in the past are different from Bitcoin. That is what distinguishes. Now, it gives us certainty, not certainty 100%, because it's still an asset. There is nothing that is 100%. But you know how many people tell the hundreds of people that contact me every single day and tell me, you know, how safe I feel now, much better.
I guarantee you there's not
follows a particular pattern. It gives me serenity. It gives me strength. It gives me conviction. Even Fred say that that is one of the main purposes or one of the main results of the power law. It gives us confidence. It gives us a path. Even Saylor had a talk at the conference, and his middle model, because Saylor's those models, was the power law, exactly the power law. Many people contacted me say, hey, Saylor knows about the power law. It is obvious because his middle ground was the power law. So that is the thing that help us to understand Bitcoin is unique, is beautiful, it's amazing, and it gives us a direction where to go. It also tells us that it's extremely unlikely that Bitcoin will go to zero. It tells us that there is a support that is very difficult to breach. We didn't even breach during COVID, so it gives us a point of reference. So all this knowledge, like Fermi say, is always better than ignorance. The only reason, this is my claim, the only reason Minesh doesn't like this knowledge is because it thrives in ignorance. This knowledge makes him irrelevant. Is lazy and ignorant. So when somebody is lazy and ignorant and he doesn't want to learn, of course he likes laziness and ignorance. So this is all. And all the people that like him, they like ignorance and laziness. Okay, they can do that. They can be Bitcoiners, be lazy and ignorant. It's not a problem. But for all the people that like knowledge and they want to understand and they want to know where we are going, the power law is immensely huge.
70,000 people on Twitter,
okay, no.
On YouTube. I'm not going to stand for that. He's insulted people. He does it every single day on Twitter. All because people are saying that the right thing to do is to hodl Bitcoin and not to trade in and out of it. He wants people to trade because that's how this illusion of the power law stays in the market. Trading is not the right thing that you should be doing with this asset. Look, if you're watching this and you've decided to entertain yourself with the idea of the power law, entertain yourself with whatever you want to entertain yourself with. The reality is this. This is a once in a species opportunity. You have a one chance to get to as much Bitcoin as possible. And the one thing I don't want to see is people sell their Bitcoin right at the moment that this is about to take off because of an American strategic reserve or a Saudi strategic reserve. This is an amazing opportunity right now in time for Bitcoin. And the last thing I want people to get damaged by Giuseppe over here, who's trying to tell people that they need to sell their Bitcoin when it goes 2 standard deviations above, when firstly, it's not a law. All you need to go is look at the definition of power law and you'll understand it's not a law. Secondly, it's not a model because it needs to be readjusted every time something new happens and new data comes out. Sure, it's been accurate for the last 10 years, but here's what I did. 10 years ago, they had no idea that an ETF was coming. 10 years ago, they had no idea that the president of the United States of America was going to say that he's pro-Bitcoin. There is so much specialness with this asset, and it cannot be fit into any model like this. And I think this is wrong. I think people are going to get hurt here. And all Geo does all day is insult people that disagree with him. That's not what a professor should be doing. That's not what maybe a nutty professor should be doing that, but that's not what a professor should be doing. Protect your Bitcoin. Understand how sacred this Bitcoin is because of the nature of the supply dynamics of the Bitcoin. This is the single most important asset humanity has ever created, and I do not want anyone losing it because of people like this who are trying to tell you. Last time it was stock to flow. Now it's the quote unquote power law. It's not even a law. You want to call it a power opinion. You want to call it a power perspective. Call it whatever you want to call it, but it is not a law. Okay. It is based on the behavior. Now, I just want to play this one video because this is my model. Fred, is that okay? It's like 30 seconds long. Fine. Right? This is my model on Bitcoin. It's the only model that I think that should be paying attention.
As you can see here on the chart, for like 4 years, Bitcoin was in like the hundreds of dollar range. And it just kind of hung out there. Yeah, like maybe it bounced down, maybe it bounced up. But it was basically in the hundreds of dollar range for like 4 fucking years. Then it went to the thousands of dollar range, and it just stayed there. Yeah, it bounced above 10 briefly, but it went in the thousands of dollars range. Then it went to the tens of thousands of dollars range, and it stayed there for 3 fucking years. And now we're coming to the end of it. What the fuck do you think is going to happen next? You think it's going to go to the $0 range? No, it's going to 100,000 fucking dollars. It's fucking gone. 6-figure range, bitch. It's going 6 figures.
That's, my friend, American HODL, and that's the model that everyone should be following, not this BS.
That is a power law, idiot. I call. You know why I use insults? Because it's a direct way to tell when people are ignorant. That is it.
Not a law.
That is a power law. What do you think it is? It's a power law.
Change the name, Gio. We can be friends if you change the name from power.
That is a power law. That behavior that you see there is exactly the power law.
So,
guys, we are
confused. People are going to lose their Bitcoin because of what you talk about.
We had a good debate.
Shutting the fuck up and getting fabulously wealthy.
Okay, guys, you guys,
none of this
great.
matters.
Hey guys, thanks for having the debate. I'm going to go to here. I am now going to be putting a poll online, and we can quickly vote on who won the debate. Let's just see. I put the poll on Twitter, and let's just see who won this debate. We'll get some votes here quickly as to who won the debate. Let me just share my Twitter. Who won the debate? Okay. Who won the debate? Okay. British HODL looks like, well, it's 18 votes. That's not significant. So 60-40 with 18 votes. All right. Well, we will check in. Now we have 179 votes. It looks like the majority of respondents did go with British HODL on this debate. I think part of it might have more to do with debate style than anything else. But guys, I thank you guys for coming to the debate. And this will be available on YouTube and on X. You can rewatch it. We had a huge turnout for this debate. We had 12,000 people. So thanks a lot, guys. And we will stop it there. Thanks.
That debate went left very quickly. Again, Giovanni, I appreciate the conversation and everything else, but you stepped into my world at the end of the day. And I think that it's sad because I think having voices that are extremely smart, and there's no doubt about it that Giovanni is a smart individual, but having voices that are very, very smart is very, very important in the Bitcoin space. I just don't think that everyone should be deluded around whether these are price models that people should be worshiping, et cetera, et cetera. And I've got tweets of Giovanni talking about, trying to set up some kind of system or some kind of group where you can multiply your Bitcoins and things like that. And it's like, dude, you're trying to get people to sell and trade in and out of their Bitcoin position. And my goal has been one thing right from the start, which is get to 1 Bitcoin. And of course, as you saw right from the very last statement that Fred made, right? Everyone thought, oh, British HODL is just making this sound like it's a 2v1. And Fred said it. There was no reason to try and frame this debate the way Fred tried to end it, which was very simple. What he said was, it looks like British HODL has won this, but I think that's more to do with debate style than anything else. That's not true. That's absolutely not true, right? People saw through the flawed nature of what's been trying to be pitched here to everyone, right? And unfortunately, it was a 2v1 debate. But I still love Fred, and we're going to smoke many, many cigars together, and it was very, very interesting. So, Fred, I appreciate you, if you're watching this, for setting this up. But here's the 3 points of what I think, what I want to call the power opinion, right? As I said in the debate, call it the power opinion. I don't care, right? When you call it a power law, it makes sense to about 3% of the population, right? Outside of that, you will have the potential of harming people that are really sitting here trying to understand what to do with their Bitcoin stack. Because when they hear the word law, the way they think about it is this is going to happen, right? And it might not happen. And the one thing that I was trying to get him to understand is that my point number one is that this is not a law. This is it's not universally applicable. right? It's based on observation. It's based on empirical observation. And by the way, I know this not because I'm a math genius. I know this because I spent 20 minutes on ChatGPT understanding power laws. That's the world that we live in now. Anyone talking any kind of bullshit to you, you can go on ChatGPT and educate yourself very quickly. This was, okay, maybe it was a little bit longer than 20 minutes, maybe like an hour and a half. But firstly, power laws are not laws, right? They're based on empirical observation. They are observations of what's happened in nature. And then you can take that, and then it leads on to number two, which is the problem, which is anytime you create a model like a power law or whatever, you have to fit the model. And what does that mean? You've got to choose a power, an exponent, that lines up with the data of where it is in the model. Now that is based on the biases and the influence and the perspective of the person fitting the model, right? That is, Geo has created this and picked a power, picked an exponent, which is lined up perfectly across all of the price dots that he's looking at. It is at best descriptive, not predictive. Now, I want you to understand that. He's been going around telling people that this is a predictive model. Even in the interview, this is a maths professor, and ChatGPT will tell you this immediately. Don't believe me. Go look at everything I'm saying on ChatGPT and speak to other people that are in this space. I've spoken to people that are mathematical engineers, and they've told me that, yeah, this is a descriptive model. This is not a prescriptive model. It's what's known as a curve fit. So you have a curve, and then you fit the data, you fit the model based on the curve, and then you can sort of kind of look at it and go, okay, where does this price extrapolate to into the future? But all of the data, the extrapolation into the future, is based on what's happened in the past. So at best, this is a descriptive model more than it is a predictive model. And it has been pitched by Geo and by all of his disciples, the power law gang, right, as a predictive model, and this is what's going to happen, and that's what's going to happen, et cetera, which leads me on to my third point, which is a flaw of power laws in general, and specifically this one, because this is the one that's relevant for us, is that it doesn't take into account any outside shocks that might come to Bitcoin. Like, for example, the ETF. This one of the stupidest things Giovanni says in the debate to me is that power law predicted the ETF. It doesn't make any sense. This guy is so in love with the idea of his power law that he's thinking that now, you know, the power law is predicting everything, right? Like the power law predicted Donald Trump almost getting shot in the face and blown off this earth, right? Power law trying to predict Larry Fink understanding Bitcoin. Power law is going to predict the United States coming into Bitcoin, et cetera, et cetera. It's all a delusion that has been found. So the third flaw of this was that it does not account for changes in drastic demand for Bitcoin, right? And so you just look at these. I'm not a math professor. I'm not a math PhD. I'm certainly not as mathematically intelligent and smart as Giovanni appears to be, or as all of the disciples appear to be. But you just look at these three things. It's not a law. It's not universally applicable, which he admitted, finally. No one else managed to get him to admit that. It took someone who's not a math genius. As I told Giovanni in an interview, just assume that my only intelligence is the 3 rules of Bitcoin, which is by far superior than anything else in the world. If I can figure this out by doing an hour and a half work on ChatGPT, it makes you kind of wonder why the people that interviewed him, why the people that took the time, gave him the platform, and made this sound like a predictive price model, didn't do that work, right? I'm not saying don't put it out there. Put it out there. Every model's interesting. Stock to flow is interesting. Everything's interesting. But when you call it a power law, the average person looks at that and goes, okay, everyone's supporting the idea that this is a power law. That must mean this is the absolute truth. And it's just not the case, right? It might be known as a power law in mathematics, but that doesn't mean that it's responsible to go out there and say, this is a absolutely, as he calls it, he thinks hundreds of people are contacting him because power law gives them comfort and all this other shit. And it's just it's cultish behavior, right? So again, if I could figure this out as a non-math genius inside an hour and a half on ChatGPT, I want to urge you to do the same thing every time someone tries to pitch you a price model. The reason why no one who's been around for more than one cycle is talking about this is because we all fall for this type of shit, right? And then what happens is the creators' egos get too big, and then they start saying stupid shit. And if you want to see what Giovanni's spirit actually is, after the debate, I sent him a DM on Twitter and basically said, look, good conversation. Next time we see each other at the Bitcoin conference or whenever, let's share a bottle of Italian Montepulciano, which is a great wine from Italy. Not only did I not get a response, but then there's 100 tweets insulting me, insulting my family, insulting everything else. And more importantly than me, because I'm being a face in this space, I've sort of put myself up to be insulted, right? For the purpose of getting people to one Bitcoin as fast as possible. Just go to his Twitter, click on the replies tab, and go look at all of his replies for the last few days, and go look at how he's talking to normal Bitcoiners. These are normal people. These are teachers. These are police officers, lawyers, doctors, dentists. These are stay-at-home parents, people trying to raise children, trying to understand what to do with their Bitcoin. And he's insulting them. He's told one person to put sticks up their ass, told another person that they're a motherfucker. This is not how a proponent of a price model in Bitcoin, in my opinion, should be acting. Maybe that's different, but I hope you enjoyed the debate. Those are my three reasonings, just basic reasonings as to why I think the power law model doesn't make any sense, beyond the fact that the people that it's being portrayed by, I think, is a little bit devious in the way that it's being sold to people. But again, use everything. Look at all models. All models are interesting. Just be very aware that one thing could happen, and that can completely and utterly destroy every price prediction model that you think is important. Now, if you want to ask me, I like the S-curve model, but I'm not an educated physicist, astrophysicist, PhD math whiz, right? But I like the S-curve model. Why? Because it's about as bullish as I like, right? That's basically it. So ultimately, this genius math professor has been given a platform everywhere, has been pitching a model that's called a law. Firstly, it's not a law. Secondly, there's also all kinds of flaws. Thirdly, because it's a curve fit model, means that every time new data comes out, you need to refit the model, right? It just makes sense, right? If you've got patterns that are happening and then new data comes out, you got to refit the pattern and see if the pattern still works. So this is absolutely not predictive or prescriptive. It's maybe descriptive to understand what's actually happened in Bitcoin, but that's it. This is the last time I'm going to spend on it. I don't want to spend any more time on this. People kept trying to tell me, I was wrong, trying to criticize this. Hopefully this expose has done that. It's gone to the point where Gio has turned very, very nasty on Twitter, so I've had to block him. And I didn't want that, right? He's turned extremely nasty, threatening all kinds of things, and so I've had to block him on there. And I think the people that are aligned with Gio are also realizing the ills in their ways, and I think will be causing some kind of separation from the man himself too. So look, at the end of the day, Bitcoin is a beautiful thing. I want everybody to get to one Bitcoin. Get to one Bitcoin as fast as you humanly possibly can and hug that Bitcoin as tight as possible. All of these things are very, very interesting. Look at them, but certainly, please do not sit there and go, I'm going to sell my Bitcoin because this line told me to sell my Bitcoin at this time, because you just never know. The moment you sell it, the thing's gonna take off. And the craziest part about power law to me was that you pick a certain day. I had a friend who's a mathematical engineer. His name is Fish, right? Anyway, and I asked him he modeled it out, and I said, okay, can you give me a price range for this particular day? And I actually read that to you. Hold on, let me find it, because I think this is quite interesting, right? He said it would be, hold on, where is it? Right. October 19th, 2024, right? So for this October, in terms of the power law, right, the way that Giovanni lays this out, he created this model, and I said, okay, just give me the price range of what this model says that the price should be of Bitcoin on this day, one specific day, October 19th, 2024. The mid-range, the middle number, right, was 56,000. Okay, cool. The low was 16,700. And the high was 169,000. So you got a model here that's giving you a range of $100,000 spread on a particular day of 16,700 to 169,000. And people kind of expect normal people to sit there and try and trade this thing with this. Complete and utter garbage horseshit. And I'm glad we had this debate finally. I had to wait until power law was gaining some kind of explicit escape velocity in order to have this conversation, because now everybody understands, and I hope people wake up to this. always look at it. Power opinions are good, power laws are not. This is a straight up opinion, if that. Do not try and risk your Bitcoin for this. This is a major, major opportunity, once in a species opportunity. And ultimately, there are always only 3 rules to Bitcoin. Step number 1, you buy Bitcoin. Step number 2, shut the fuck up. And step number 3, you get fabulously wealthy.